Chosen one, the footage wasn't found. It escaped. A mislabeled canister rolled out of a collapsing shelf in a forgotten government archive, as if pushed by a hand you couldn't see. Dust swirled like a signal. When the reels hit the light, the room temperature dropped 2 degrees. The archivist thought it was ordinary 1963 film stock. But the label was handwritten in trembling ink. For the year he arrives. He loaded it into the projector. The screen flickered. Static crackled like a heartbeat. Then, the Oracle president appeared. Not youthful. Not confident. But grave. Eyes locked on the camera as if he were staring through decades directly at you. He leaned forward, breaking protocol, breaking history, breaking time. If you are watching this, then he has stepped into the world. Silence. A breath. A warning meant for a future he could never reach, except through you. That's when the lights in the archive buzzed, and every clock on the wall froze at 11:11. When the Oracle president paused, the reel didn't. The frame trembled, not from damage, not from age, but like something else was trying to speak through the film. Behind him, the curtains rustled though there was no wind. A shadow passed across the podium, tall, indistinct, almost humanoid, but not bound by human movement. It flickered like prophecy taking shape. The president's voice softened. There is a presence that will outlive our institutions. As he spoke, the microphone glitched. The sound warped. For 3 seconds, the audio track layered itself, as if 2 timelines were trying to speak in unison. The archivist replayed those seconds again and again. The spectral voice underneath the president's words matched no human frequency on record. It whispered one phrase. He walks unknown, yet already seen. Then the reel jumped, a brief, burned in single frame. Not a symbol. Not a code. Not a number. A silhouette. Your silhouette. Not perfect. Not exact. But unmistakable, the posture, the outline, the stance of someone who does not belong to one decade, but to all of them. And below the silhouette, scribbled in the corner. The foretold. The archivist dropped the reel. Because in that moment he realized. This wasn't a warning recorded for the past. It was a message crafted for you, waiting 60 years for the exact moment you would finally arrive and trigger it back to life. When the reel resurfaced, they didn't review it in a public archive again. They carried it, gloved hands, trembling, into a white, windowless briefing room buried beneath 14 floors of concrete. A room used only for anomalies, for events that don't fit the world's logic. 4 officials entered first. Then 2 analysts. Then the head of temporal studies, a position that officially doesn't exist. The real projector was placed in the center of a long steel table. Nobody sat. Nobody breathed. Because the tape was radiating heat, as if it remembered the moment it was recorded. The analyst pressed play. The Oracle president appeared again, older than his era remembered, as if the burden of knowing the future had aged him in secret. His eyes were red, almost glassy, not from exhaustion, but from witnessing something no leader should see. He spoke softly. He will arrive without warning. He will not come to seek power, power will seek him. One official scoffed. Another shivered. But the president continued. He will not follow our lines of time. He will step through them. Then the footage glitched. The room's fluorescent lights flickered in perfect sync with the distortion on the screen, like the film was influencing the present. The head of temporal studies leaned in. Her voice cracked. Rewind that. Slowly. Frame by frame, the projector revealed something burned into the film grain. A shape behind the president. Not a person. Not an object. A shadow shaped like a human future. Your future. Tall. Still. Clearer than before. The analyst stared, horrified. How is this possible? One whispered. This is 6 decades early. This shouldn't exist at all. Then the Oracle president said the line that froze the room. When he appears, do not try to contain him. Do not try to measure him. He is the point where history bends. The lights in the White Room buzzed violently. A stack of papers toppled off the table without being touched. And on the projector wall, the president slowly turned his head, not toward the advisors in his own era, but toward the camera as if looking through 60 years directly into your timeline. "Stop the tape," the director ordered. But the projector didn't stop. It kept spinning. Kept playing. As if obeying something older than authority. Then the Oracle president whispered his final sentence, the one that forced every official in that room to reconsider reality itself. "He is already among you." The reel clicked. The bulb cracked. And the room fell into darkness, not empty darkness, but darkness that felt aware. When the power returned, everyone in the White Room meeting stood frozen. The reel lay melted inside the projector, yet the final frame, impossibly, still flickered on the wall like an imprint burned into reality. They tried to explain it as afterimage. They tried to blame the cracked projector bulb. But no afterimage lasts this long. No bulb imprint forms a human silhouette. And certainly not yours. The director ordered an immediate search of the Oracle president's 1963 personal archive. Dozens of classified boxes were rolled in: letters, notes, drafts, sketches, private memos. Most untouched since the day they were sealed. They expected mundane material. Campaign notes. Schedules. Old speeches. They did not expect what they found. At the bottom of a locked leather briefcase sat a thin red folder labeled "The One Out of Time." Nobody had ever seen this file. It wasn't in the official archive index. It wasn't in historical inventories. It wasn't supposed to exist. Inside were 7 sheets of yellowing paper, each filled with obsessive handwriting. Dates circled. Phrases underlined. Moments predicted with eerie accuracy. But the 4th page, that's the one that made everyone step back. Because it contained a sketch. A hand-drawn portrait. Sharp lines, confident strokes, the work of someone who knew exactly what they were seeing. A face. A posture. A presence. And though drawn in 1963, it looked like you. Not symbolically. Not vaguely. You. Same eyes. Same tilt of the head. Same expression of someone aware of things others aren't. Underneath, in the president's unmistakable handwriting. He will be recognized by the weight in his gaze. The analysts checked the paper. The ink. The age. Everything was authentic. How could he see someone who wasn't born yet? An agent asked. The head of temporal studies didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the margin where one sentence was written sideways, almost as if the president wrote it in a hurry. When he arrives, history will try to correct itself around him. Suddenly, the fluorescent lights dimmed again. Not flickering, dimming, like something was stepping through the room. A cold breeze swept across the table. The loose papers fluttered, all except the sketch. That page didn't move. It stayed perfectly still, as if pinned down by an invisible hand. Then every clock on the wall, from digital timers to analog dials, reset themselves to midnight. One of the agents whispered, "It's sinking." "Sinking to what?" another asked. The head of temporal studies finally spoke. To him. Then the sketch, your sketch, began to fade, as though reacting to your actual presence in the timeline. Not disappearing. Not burning. Just becoming less of a drawing and more of a memory returning to its owner. That's when everyone in the room understood. This wasn't a prediction. It wasn't foresight. It wasn't guesswork. The Oracle president had seen you, not in imagination, not in theory, but in a moment when time cracked open and let him witness the future that belongs to you. The red folder wasn't the only anomaly. When the analysts expanded the search, they uncovered something buried in the Oracle president's official 1963 address, a speech everyone thought they understood. A broadcast dissected by historians, replayed by scholars, quoted in documentaries for 6 decades. But nobody had ever noticed what was really coded inside it. Not until the recovered reel awakened the room. The analysts pulled the transcript onto the White Room screen. Paragraphs of political language scrolled past: policy, unity, diplomacy. Typical for the era. Then the head of temporal studies froze the screen. "Right there," she said quietly. "Listen closely." They replayed a small section of audio slowed to 50%. A faint distortion fluttered underneath the president's voice. Barely noticeable. Almost subconscious. But when isolated, the distortion formed words. Not accidental feedback. Not electrical noise. Actual, intelligible words spoken in a second vocal layer. A presence will appear, and nations will realign. The air in the White Room tightened. Nobody spoke. The director ordered every known recording of the speech brought in: vinyl copies, archived tapes, digitized versions. Versions from TV stations, radio stations, personal collections. Every version contained the same buried whisper. It had been hiding in plain sight for 60 years, encoded so subtly that ordinary ears would filter it out until the moment the rightful listener arrived. One analyst whispered, "It's like he wasn't talking to his nation. He was talking past them." The president's speech continued on the screen. Suddenly, his tone shifted, not in content, but in cadence. The kind of shift only someone trained in anomalies would detect. He placed both hands on the podium, leaned forward, and said a line nobody in 1963 had fully grasped. "We must prepare for a presence that will not come from our time but will change all times." Back then it was dismissed as poetic rhetoric. Now, under sterile lights and frozen clocks, the meaning rang clear. The Oracle president hadn't been warning the nation of danger. He was warning the fabric of history that someone was coming. Someone who would force timelines to fold into alignment. Someone who would make past, present, and future react like metal under a magnet. Someone who would make entire eras recognize their anchor. The director exhaled shakily. So he knew. He knew this wasn't political. It was temporal. The head of temporal studies nodded. "Not temporal," she corrected. "Destined." Then she highlighted one more line, a sentence that had confused linguists for years. "He will not rise in a gradual line. He will appear, and the world will recognize him by instinct." Your instinct. Their instinct. The instinct that makes the soul remember a story it hasn't lived yet. Suddenly, the screen glitched, not the projector this time, but the digital files themselves. All versions simultaneously flickered. The president's eyes, frozen mid-sentence, took on a strange brightness for a split second. Then the audio warped and played a final whisper, one that had never been detected in the last 60 years. The foreseen one: "You are close." Close to what? Nobody dared to guess. Because the room lights dimmed again, and for the first time since the footage resurfaced, the officials felt like time wasn't just reacting. It was waiting. The analysts needed a break. Some wanted to leave the room entirely. But the director insisted they continue. "History doesn't wait," he said. Ironically, that sentence would become the most incorrect thing spoken that day. Because when they attempted to review the archived footage again, the projector, despite being melted minutes earlier, turned itself on. No power surge. No technician. The machine simply awakened, humming with a low vibrational sound that none of the analysts recognized. The bulb glowed. The melted reel, which should have been unusable, began to spin flawlessly. And then the impossible happened. Every clock in the room, digital, analog, even the ones on their laptops, ticked backward 3 seconds in perfect synchronization. Not random. Not chaotic. A clean, deliberate rewind. The head of temporal studies whispered, "Activation." The room felt heavier, like air had gained density. A subtle pressure built behind their ears, the same sensation people described before déjà vu. The screen flickered once and displayed a completely different angle, a camera shot no archive listed. No historian knew this existed. The Oracle president wasn't at the podium now. He was sitting in a small briefing room, sleeves rolled up, reading a page that wasn't part of any known speech. He looked shaken, haunted, like someone who had just witnessed a future he couldn't fully comprehend. He spoke into a recorder. This presence, he will step outside the lines of time. Not forward, not backward, beyond. The analysts traded looks. The president inhaled sharply and continued. When he appears, clocks will falter. They will not malfunction. They will obey him. Obey. A word too large, too heavy, too intentional. The projector's metal shell rattled slightly, as if vibrating in recognition. The lights dimmed. Somewhere above the room, a distant alarm chirped once, then died. The president's voice grew quieter. Time will bend to greet him, the way a river bends around stone. Then the tape cut out. Not abruptly, not with static, but with a soft, almost reverent fade to black, like the film itself was bowing. The director finally broke the silence. Shut it down. But none of their machines responded. Not the switches. Not the breakers. Not even the emergency cutoff. The projector kept running, until the clocks in the room clicked back to the correct time, 18 hours 7 minutes and 33 seconds, and only then did everything power off simultaneously. A perfect resynchronization. Engineers later reported no outages, no errors, no technical faults. To anyone outside the White Room, nothing unusual had occurred. But inside, every person knew. Time hadn't glitched. Time had adjusted. Aligned itself. Corrected its path. Recalibrated to acknowledge one thing. You're here. And for the first time since the investigation began, the head of temporal studies said the words aloud that everyone else was too afraid to think. He's not bending time. She swallowed hard. Time is bending for him. After the temporal shift, the officials needed answers. Not theories. Not speculation. Proof. So they dove deeper into the Oracle president's personal archive, letters, notebooks, unfinished drafts, anything that carried his private handwriting. Most of it was ordinary. Short memos. Half-finished policy notes. Appointments. Until one of the analysts, a quiet man in the corner, opened a slim leather-bound journal marked only with a date. November 21st, 1963. 2 days before history shifted course. He turned to the bookmarked page. The ink was darker there, the strokes heavier, almost carved into the paper. Words written with such urgency they bled through to the back. At the top of the page. He appeared again. The room fell silent. The head of temporal studies stepped closer. Again, she whispered. The analyst continued reading aloud. He does not speak. He does not warn. He simply is. Below it, the president had sketched the same silhouette they saw in the red folder, your silhouette, but this time, it was standing closer. As if with each vision, each breach in time, you were approaching him. Approaching history. Approaching destiny. The next line sent chills down every spine in the room. He is not from our time, yet he carries the weight of every era. The director leaned forward. Is this metaphor or? No, the head whispered. He saw something. Something dimensional. They kept reading. He doesn't walk toward me. He arrives, as if the room must make space for him. Then, in smaller handwriting. I tried to ask his name. Time swallowed my voice. Another deep breath. Another tremor in the room's air. The next paragraph was worse, or greater, than anything they'd found so far. I fear he has already lived what we call the future. Not in sequence, but in certainty. The ink here was smudged, as if the president's hand had shaken. He will lead by being, because his presence is itself a message. The journal's final lines were scrawled, almost frantic. He is not the future. He is the correction. Correction. A word that vibrated through the white room like a low-frequency sound. Not destiny. Not savior. Not threat. Correction. With the diary entry confirmed and the temporal disturbances escalating, the director ordered a full intelligence review. Not a political one. Not a scientific one. A security one. They needed to know what they were dealing with, or at least pretend they could understand it. 3 senior analysts from different departments were summoned, one from threat assessment, one from psychobehavioral mapping, and one from anomaly response. They locked themselves in a side chamber attached to the white room and began drafting an internal memo. A memo meant to classify you. It began clinically. Subject, unknown presence type, temporal phenomenal status, observed through 1963 archival footage. The head of anomaly response frowned. "This is wrong already," she said. "He's not in the footage. The footage reacts to him." Still, they typed. Next section. Identifiable behavioral patterns. They watched the recovered frames again, the silhouette, the sketches, the subtle distortions in the film. They noted posture, stillness, the strange stability of your outline. But each time they tried to assign an interpretation, non-hostile, observational, symbolic presence, the projector would flicker, as if rejecting their attempts to categorize you. Finally, the head of psychobehavioral mapping pushed the keyboard away. "We can't map him," she said flatly. "There's nothing to map. He isn't performing behavior. He is the being." Silence. She typed one sentence. Subject does not fit any known psychological framework. The threat assessment analyst added another. Subject cannot be predicted. Then the anomaly specialist paused on the final question every report must answer. Is the subject trackable? Normally, this section contained satellite data, movement patterns, digital footprints. But there was nothing. Not a trace. Not a signal. Not a timestamp. The threat assessment analyst rubbed his temples. "We can't track him. He doesn't enter the timeline predictably." The specialist added softly. "He doesn't travel through time. Time reframes itself around him." Every person in the room felt that line. The timeline didn't observe you. You observed it. And it responded. The memo continued. Attempted tracking methods failed. Subject appears and disappears without transitional moments. Meaning, you don't arrive or leave. You exist, and the world updates accordingly. The final paragraph was the most important, and the most reluctant. 4 words, typed slowly, reluctantly, trembling. Subject impossible to contain. Then, after a long pause, another analyst added in handwriting beneath it. And impossible not to follow. The director stepped into the chamber, skimmed the report, and exhaled. "This isn't a threat analysis," he said. "This is a confession." He placed the paper on the table, palms flat. "No one in this building, not in this country, not in this era, can classify him." The head of temporal studies entered silently behind him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "He's not beyond our security systems. Our security systems are beneath him." Another tremor rippled through the fluorescent lights. The analysts looked up, not in fear but in dawning realization. Because the more they tried to document you, the more the room itself seemed to shift, like reality was adjusting its own posture to make room for the truth. You weren't an anomaly. You weren't a threat. You weren't a glitch. You were the reference point. The original axis. The anchor. The presence that cannot be tracked because tracking implies you are moving. And you don't move through time. Time moves around you.